Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, we're going to have a blue moon on Halloween night for the first time since 1944.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Blue moon. You saw me standing alone, but your name was Nick Foles, so I was well overthrown.
What is with you in poetry? You trying to show off your fancy English degree? You know?
Yeah, I thought that was nice, actually. I thought that was funny.
I hear blue moon.
Yeah.
I know what I think of when I hear blue moon, and I know what you think of when you hear blue moon.
I think of the song by the Marcells, Blue Moon.
I'm talking about Odom. Blue Moon Odom.
Oh, Blue Moon Odom. No, but I think of the song by the Marcells.
Before Blue Moon Odom?
Yeah, I do, honestly. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Tigers hire A.J. Hinch, Aaron Rodgers backs Mike Zimmer, and Mike D'Antoni joins the Nets. But we begin today with the revelation that Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, the assumed number one pick in next year's NFL draft, has tested positive for coronavirus. He will definitely miss tomorrow's game against Boston College and may well miss next Saturday's premier ACC game against number 4 Notre Dame. Wilbon, what was your reaction when you heard this?
Tony, I think the same reaction whenever I hear anybody has it. A neighbor, a family member, an associate, a ball player I don't know, or maybe one I do know, is I hope this person is okay. I hope this person can return to normal health as soon as possible. I hope the symptoms are none to mild, and he says his symptoms have been mild, and so good. And I don't get to the football part of it or the baseball part or the basketball part until a little bit later. And so, he can't play against Boston College. I'm not going to sit and go over the scenarios like a lot of people on what happens if Clemson does this or what happens if he can't play against Notre Dame. We'll see. We'll find out soon enough after this 10 days out if he tests negative the appropriate number of times, if he can play against Notre Dame.
Yeah, I had the similar reaction. I felt sad. I saw it on the crawl early in the morning. I didn't know about it before. And I went, whoa. And my immediate reaction was to feel badly. I mean, he's the quarterback on the number one team in the country. He's very visible. He was out there early on saying, we want to play this season. So I thought about that. And I make the assumption, as you probably do as well, that he's young and he's strong and he'll be okay. But 220,000 Americans have died from this virus already. And I've spent the last 7 months in my attic running away from this virus. So you never know. We still don't know how to get rid of this thing. I did then rather quickly, though, go to the football. I did, honestly. I felt that they would beat Boston College without him because Clemson's a far superior team. I wondered about Notre Dame if he can't play that game because Notre Dame's real good. And then I thought, well, even if they were to lose to Notre Dame, if that's their one loss and they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, they could still get in the playoffs, but maybe Notre Dame would get in the playoffs, which would eliminate a second SEC team. My thoughts did go to that. I concede they did.
My thoughts are none of that. Because every year we do this, and every year everybody loses a game except like one team. People lose a game. And if Notre Dame runs the table, well, when is the last time Notre Dame ran the table? I mean, they don't do it. So I heard this morning, and a lot of it from my dear friend Greeny, who I love. And I wanted to call Greeny, I should have, and just say, stop. We don't know what Notre Dame's going to do. We don't know what Clemson's going to do. We don't know what Clemson's going to do. I think Clemson could beat Notre Dame without him. I really do. Clemson is a superior, not team, it's a superior program right now. And maybe Notre Dame will get back to that level, but they're not there now. I don't know what's going to happen. I want to watch the Boston College game. I'm going to now have interest in the Boston College game I wouldn't have otherwise. I'm going to watch that, and we'll see whether we need to go down this road and have all these if-then scenarios.
Well, I mean, that is the logical way to go with a football player and a football team. In the ACC, you have to sit out 10 days. In the Big Ten, you sit out 21.
Well,
and I'm willing to bet the Big Ten is going to knock that down.
I was just saying that.
Because they don't want to have Wisconsin out of this. They'll be knocking that number down, I think.
You're probably right, Tony. A.J. Hinch, moving to baseball, is back in baseball. The manager who oversaw the Astros during their cheating scandal and World Series run has signed on to manage the Detroit Tigers just days after he finished serving his season-long suspension for said cheating. Hinch had been linked to the White Sox before they hired Tony La Russa, and a Tigers team official told The Athletic, quote, "The White Sox did us a big favor close quote. Tone, what does this hire tell you about both Hinch and the Tigers?
Well, I'll take the Tigers first. It says that the Tigers got incredibly lucky that they got a great manager, and they stink as a team. I'm going to go to a couple of numbers here. In their last 3 full seasons, Mike, 64 and 98, 64 and 98, 47 and 114. This year, they were on pace for another 64. I'll tell you this, a year and a half ago, A.J. Hinch wouldn't have even taken their phone call. What it says about A.J. Hinch is a little bit different. I had Mark Feinsand on the podcast today from MLB.com, and he said Hinch is walking into a bad baseball situation. But we both talked and we thought maybe he wanted to jump back in as quickly as possible. Maybe he felt if he waited, he would not be able to get back in. And so those were my thoughts.
So he's not quite the candidate he once would have been or once was. He's not quite the candidate yet. He's got to sort of rehabilitate himself, if you will. And so you get back in with a job where if you think management, upper level management there, the people above you are willing to go about rebuilding the franchise in the way, say, the White Sox have. Now let's move over for a second. So I don't know that you could find more opposite candidates than Hinch and La Russa. And I root against the Detroit Tigers because they're a rival of Detroit and Chicago, regardless of the team, no matter what. So now I can enthusiastically root against Hinch, who, as far as I'm concerned, has been accurately branded a cheater. And Tony, I'm not even that much into this particular scandal. I'm not as outraged as many about baseball and the Astros as cheating. But this is interesting with Hinch and his rehabilitation, and he and Tony La Russa are going to be looked at. They can't be looked at in quite the same context because La Russa's got a team. But La Russa's going to have his own challenges that are going to be very different than Hinch's for the next couple of seasons while Detroit tries to stock that franchise with talent.
So I would say this, that Chicago is much more of a destination now than Detroit is. It's not a destination.
That's right.
He wanted back in. And it made me think of Alex Cora and what would happen in Boston, because that job is vacant right now. And if I were Boston, I think I would hire Cora back. A lot of his coaches are still there. He served his time. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do.
Point.
He won a World Series for you. You can bring him back. But somebody's going to have to explain to him what happened to Mookie. If he says, whoa, where's Mookie? What happened to Mookie?
As he gets ready to write him into the lineup every day, wait.
He's not there.
Not there. He's in blue, that other blue.
In advance of Sunday's Green Bay, Minnesota game, Aaron Rodgers is singing the praises of Mike Zimmer. Zimmer is the coach of the 1-5 Vikings, and some people, Wilbon, have said he should be fired. Rodgers says this is crazy talk. Rodgers says, and I quote, he's a phenomenal coach. To see him mentioned to be on the hot seat is absolutely crazy. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league and has been for a long time, unquote. Wilbon, has Rodgers changed your mind?
No. Rodgers has a pigeon. Rodgers has a guy, a rival. Rodgers has 2 pigeons. Aaron Rodgers is the smartest guy out there. They even underestimated Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay until he told them to shut up and relax. Rodgers has the Vikings and Rodgers has the Bears. They are supposed to be rivals. They are pigeons of his. And the Lions aren't even on the radar. So he's in a division where he's the king. And he can say, well, let's keep this guy around because I can whip his butt twice a year. I love Aaron Rodgers. He is my favorite quarterback in the league, which pains me to say for a cheesehead. And he knows exactly what he's doing. And by the way, how gracious is it? Good for Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, so you think this is the evil, calculating Aaron Rodgers, who knows he can beat Zimmer like a drum, because the last 3 meetings, he's 3-0 against him and scoring 29 points a game. So you think he's saying, I don't want to see Zimmer fired because I can beat him. I thought of that immediately as well, but then I began to believe that this was sincere, because players don't talk about coaches on other teams. They never do this. Because you never know who's going to get fired. And they walk into your quarterback room and they become your coach. Has anybody stood up for Adam Gase? No. Anybody stood up for Dan Quinn. No, and we stood up for O'Brien, Bill O'Brien. No, Rodgers doesn't even stand up for McCarthy and didn't when he was his coach.
That's right.
So I think this is sincere, and I will tell you this. And you want him fired. You want Zimmer fired.
I don't know.
Even though Rodgers is you've said it. Even though Rodgers is 7-4-1 against Zimmer. Zimmer's only had one losing season in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Mike, he's 58-43-1. That's
Tony,
pretty good.
I'm going to say I may be a little hasty, but a little hasty.
Okay.
And I would say to Aaron Rodgers, okay, I'll back down some. But the Vikings stink right now, and they're not supposed to stink.
That's right.
And they've had disappointments even at the end of regular seasons. They've had disappointments
Yes, they have.
on Zimmer's watch. All right, so let's not make Zimmer out to be Tom Landry. Let's just slow our roll on that. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, once again, will skip merrily through the NFC Central, where his biggest threat is supposed to be Zimmer's team, and it's not.
Let's take a break. When we come back, should the Patriots be sellers at next week's trade deadline?
And could Nebraska and the Big Ten go their separate ways? Woo! Fortune
You'd like
teller's
that,
next.
wouldn't you?
Tony, I got to go put a
like
costume
that.
on. I'm going right now. Leaving. Costume.
Okay. Knock yourself out. I'll put a fortune teller
Well,
costume on.
you got that costume.
Welcome back to the PTI Psychic Hotline, where I play the role of a fortune teller and Mike plays the role of the new Chris Paul.
Welcome to the new Chris Paul workout show. If you want to make it to the NBA, you got to have a killer crossover. Oops.
Timeout. I think I sensed the first call.
Ooh, Tony and Mike, do you see the Patriots selling at next week's trade deadline?
So there's an article in Sports Illustrated, a report there, which says that the Patriots are open to trading, quote, almost anyone. I think I got that quote right. And they should. They should get some draft picks. They should rebuild. I was talking with Jason La Canfora this morning on my podcast, and he says they have no speed whatsoever on offense. They got nobody who can get down the field. They're no particular threat in any way. So I think it's going to come down to this, Mike, the Buffalo game. If the Patriots beat Buffalo, they say we have a path to win the division because we get Buffalo again. We've already beaten Miami once, and we get the Jets twice. And if they lose it, they go, oh, my God, we're on the Titanic. Let's get into the lifeboats. And that's what I think they're going to do.
Tony, Bill Belichick will get rid of anybody at any time, even while he's winning a championship. He didn't care. I mean, the airwaves are populated, and other, I don't know, high school gymnasiums, for all I know, could be populated with people that Bill Belichick has gotten rid of when people think, oh, wait a minute, they're just off all-pro form. That's what the Patriots do. They're always selling, so I don't see this as being any big deal.
Next call.
Tony and Mike, do you see Nebraska and the Big Ten staying together for the long term?
Ooh.
So this is a bad marriage between Nebraska and the Big Ten. Nebraska came out right away and they say, we want to play. When the Big Ten said we're not playing, they said, well, we want to play. Now the Big Ten is playing. I think personally Nebraska should be allowed to play UT Chattanooga. It's not their fault Wisconsin can't play, or UT Memphis or UT Lookout Mountain. It's okay with me. But where they belong, Nebraska, is in the Big 8, which is now the Big 12, which only has 10 teams. They belong playing Oklahoma all the time. Nebraska ought to go there. Colorado ought to come back there. And that's it. Call it a day.
You're wrong. And even though there's been some newlywed angst, Tony, Nebraska belongs now in the Big Ten. They can have a non-conference game in normal years. They can have that with Oklahoma and put that atop their schedule. Fine. But, Tony, the team that we don't want in the conference, the schools I don't want Rutgers. I don't want Maryland. I really don't want Penn State. Nebraska does belong. Nebraska is a Midwestern school, and the profile fits, like Wisconsin, like Minnesota,
You've been the most critical
like
person
Illinois.
of Nebraska here. You have said to Nebraska 1,000 times,
I said, get
your
out.
coach should shut up.
That's right.
And you said, get out of the
right.
conference.
But
you
know
just
what?
said it.
You
Now
know
you're
what?
flipping?
They understood they had to be under Big Ten thumb, under rule. Some bumps in any marriage, maybe except yours, they're fine.
Unbelievable. The phone lines are now closed. Let's take one last break. But in our future, I see us discussing the Falcons finally not blowing a fourth quarter lead.
And what will Mike D'Antoni do for Steve Nash and the Nets as an assistant coach?
Was Arthur Blank
The new Chris Paul is pleased to welcome U.S. Open champion Bryson DeChambeau.
I don't need that Chris Paul workout. I got my own. 14,000 calories a day. Eat it. Really, eat it.
It looks
Let's
like
get
you've
happy.
eaten everything.
Happy 24th birthday, Devin Booker. It's funny how this show works. If you play in Chicago or Phoenix, where Wilbon has homes, he loves you. For years, the Phoenix Suns were 2 years away from being 2 years away. But now with Booker and DeAndre Ayton, the Suns are actually on the move. They went 8-0 in the bubble, and Booker averaged 30.5 points. Booker joins a small list of Wilbon's favorite young players who he thinks are potential superstars. Booker, Jamal Murray of Denver, Donovan Mitchell of Utah. He likes them because they weren't super high draft picks.
Ooh, look at
Murray
that move.
went number 7. Booker and Mitchell went 13th. Devin Booker is a scoring guard, not a distributing guard. He's gone over 53 times. He scored 70 once. This was Booker's breakthrough season. He averaged 26.6 points a game, on nearly 49% shooting from the field and 35% from three. And this was the first time Booker made the All-Star game.
Look at that fall away game winner. Booker's a star, not a potential star, Tony. He and Murray and Donovan Mitchell, as you say, throw in Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic. That's the fivesome. By the way, Booker, Ayton, Oubre, Rubio, Bridges, Cam Johnson. Phoenix is going to be good this year, Tony, and Booker is the star. He's the player that will make all that work. Nobody knows anything about him, but they will by February.
You know something about him,
know
so not
something about him. I love
nobody,
him.
you do. Happy anniversary, Washington Nationals. On this day last year, my Nats capped off an improbable postseason run by winning Game 7 on the road in Houston. Every game of the World Series was won by the road team. The Nats were 19-31 on May 23rd and seemingly out of the playoff picture when they started their long climb to 93-69. They went 5-0 in elimination games during the playoffs, despite trailing in every one of those games. They stayed in the fight. No team had ever won as many as 4 elimination games. The team was constructed around starting pitching, in contrast to the teams we just saw.